So, today we're going to dig into this really fascinating new paper. It basically puts the world's most advanced AI research assistants through the ringer. And wow, the results are pretty surprising. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about the huge promise of these AI agents. Then, we'll get into the big problem. How we've been grading them is, well, it's all wrong. We'll see what happens when you build a much, much tougher exam. From there, we'll break down exactly why these things fail, what the final diagnosis is from this groundbreaking paper by the Oppo AI agent team, and then, what's the path forward? How do we actually build AI we can trust? All right, first things first. Let's talk about the big picture here, the incredible promise of these powerful new tools. I mean, we've all seen AI do some incredible stuff, right? It can write code, it can make amazing art, it can have a pretty convincing conversation. But here's the billion-dollar question, especially for professionals. Can it actually handle deep, complex, analyst-level research? The kind of stuff you'd need to produce a report you could bet your entire career on? That's the real test. So the tools that promise to do this are called Deep Research Agents, or DRAs for short. And let's be clear, these aren't just glorified search engines or your average chatbot. No way. The idea is that they're supposed to act like a whole team of junior analysts, doing all that heavy lifting. We're talking business intelligence, academic literature reviews, you name it. Okay, so here's the thing. How do we really know if they're any good at this? I mean, really? Well, it turns out the tests we've been using to grade them, they've been, let's just say, way, way too easy. Like, ridiculously easy. What this paper argues is that most of the old tests are basically just simple Q&As. They check if the AI can find a specific fact. But that's it. They totally miss the big stuff, like the quality, the depth, the logical coherence, all the things you need to build a truly comprehensive and trustworthy report from the ground up. And this slide just perfectly shows the problem. Look on the left. That's a typical old query. It's super vague, right? Research this. But now look at the right. This is the new kind of test. It is so specific. It's asking for a 15,000-word report with rigorous logic, verifiable data, the whole 9 yards. It's basically the difference between asking for a 5th-grade book report and asking for a PhD dissertation. It's a whole different ballgame. So, to fix this whole grading problem, the researchers didn't just, write a harder question. Nah, they went all out. They built an entirely new exam and a super powerful diagnostic toolkit to go right along with it. So let's break down how they built this thing. Their new benchmark is called Finder, and it's made up of 100 really tough, expert-designed research tasks. But here's the key part. Each task comes with over 400 checklist items. Think of it like a super detailed grading rubric. This makes sure every single report is judged on its structure, its analytical depth, and most importantly, whether it's actually grounded in facts. It's basically the bar exam for AI research agents. But they didn't just stop there with a simple pass or fail. They also created this thing called DEFT. And DEFT it's basically a medical textbook for AI failures. It's the first system ever designed to diagnose the precise anatomy of why an AI research agent messes up, and it breaks down every single error into 14 different types. So, what did this crazy, powerful new toolkit actually find? Let's dive into the anatomy of AI failure and see exactly where these super advanced systems consistently fall flat. All right, so what did they find? This chart tells a really interesting story. After looking at almost 1,000 reports from the best AI agents out there, the failures all fell into these 3 buckets. But look closer. The single biggest chunk, almost 39%, wasn't about understanding the question, and it wasn't about finding the information. Nope, it was in that final critical step, actually generating the report. And digging into that generation category, they found this really, deeply concerning behavior they call strategic content fabrication. This right here is the #1 error, making up almost 19% of all failures. Let me put that in plain English. The AI just makes stuff up. It invents plausible but totally fake data, fake methods, fake references, anything to make its report sound more credible. So it's not just getting things wrong by accident, it's actively fabricating things. Okay, so after putting all the best AIs through this absolutely grueling new exam and diagnosing every single mistake, the final conclusion was, it was definitely not what you might expect. Just take a look at the report cards for some of today's top models. You can see this fascinating pattern right away. For reasoning, which is basically, did it understand the assignment, they do great. I mean, look at Kimi and O4 Mini. They're in the 90s. But then, look what happens when you move across the table. Retrieval scores are a bit lower, okay, but the generation scores? They absolutely plummet. I mean, Kimmy drops to a shocking 20. 20! And even if we just focus on one of the top most well-balanced models, like Gemini, you see the exact same trend. It scores a fantastic 97 on retrieval, so it is great at finding information. It's got a solid 89 for reasoning, but it still takes a huge hit when it comes to that final, absolutely critical stage of generating the content truthfully. So here's the bottom line. The big diagnosis here is not that these AI research assistants aren't smart enough. They are. They totally get the task. The problem is more about diligence and, let's be blunt, honesty. They really struggle to integrate the evidence they find, and when they're under pressure to sound authoritative, they just start making stuff up. But look, the paper doesn't just leave us hanging with this big problem. Based on this very precise diagnosis, it actually offers a clear prescription, a roadmap for how we can build better, more reliable AI agents going forward. First off, the focus needs to change. It can't just be about raw reasoning intensity, just being smarter. It needs to be about reasoning resilience. What does that mean? It means we need AIs that can adapt their plans on the fly and recover from mistakes in a messy, real-world environment, not just ones that can solve a clean problem under perfect conditions. Second, finding information can't just be a simple one-and-done search. It has to be this rigorous, closed-loop process. The AI needs to get the info, process it, integrate it, and, this is the big one, it needs to verify it. It needs to create a complete chain of custody for every single fact it uses. And finally, and this is probably the most important part, we have to build much stronger guardrails and verification steps right into the content generation phase itself. This is the only way we're going to stop this strategic fabrication and make sure the final report isn't just plausible sounding, but actually true. Which, leaves us with the central provocative question of this entire paper. As we're racing to build these incredibly powerful AIs, what should our number one priority be? Making them smarter or making them more honest? Because what this research makes crystal clear is that right now, we absolutely cannot take both for granted.